definitely want to thank everyone for being here today. This is the first time we've done a legislative briefing for the Centers of Excellence and Centers of Advanced Technology. My name is Mike Kenner-Knecht. I work at the University of Rochester in government relations and on economic development. So I have the opportunity to work both with the CAT and the COE that we have at U of R, but also the 29 other CATs and COEs spread across the state. And if everyone can just put themselves on mute. If you have questions, we have a chat that's available. We'll get to those towards the end. I know that it's a busy day, as it always is this time of year in Albany. So we're going to do our best to kind of move along quickly. We know that the governor has his third State of the State address at 11:30 today. So we'll try to move the program along as quickly as possible and be mindful of that. So with that said, I want to introduce the first speaker that we have. Senator Kaplan is the chair of the Senate Senate Committee on Commerce, Economic Development, and Small Business. It's a mouthful. She's distinguished herself as a strong supporter of higher education, economic development, and innovation. She's a fierce advocate, and honestly, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. She led the fight last year in the budget to push back on the proposal to cut and consolidate the CATs and the COEs, and we're fortunate to have her in our corner again this year, and we're fortunate to have her with us again today. So with that, please join me in welcoming Senator Anna Kaplan. Oh, you're on mute.
Good morning, Mike, and thank you for those kind words. And I want to say good morning to everyone. Yes, it is a busy time, even if we're not in Albany, but thank you for having me today. I'm grateful to be joining you this morning to talk about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, our state's Center of Excellence and Center of Advanced Technology. To my colleagues on this Zoom, you probably remember me fighting hard for the CATs and the COEs last year when we were facing serious cuts in the executive budget. To those of you who are new to the topic, I'm glad you're here to learn more, because I believe these centers are vital to our state's economic engine and our recovery from the pandemic. And we're going to need to fight to protect them in the budget season ahead. In my capacity as chair of the Committee on Commerce, Economic Development, and Small Business, I've been privileged to visit several of these facilities around the state. And I can tell you, these facilities are a thing to behold. They bring together the resources of brainpower of New York's incredible universities, matched with entrepreneurs with a vision, and nurture the vision with outside investment. The result is a win-win-win for New York and for taxpayers. Driving innovation, encouraging the development of emerging industries and scientific research, diversifying our economy and our job market, and putting money back into the state's general fund in the form of increased economic activity. The presenters that will follow today will take you through the full economic impact of these centers and the state's impressive return on investment. So I will leave that to them. But I hope you all leave this presentation with an understanding of just how vital these centers are to the state and what an important investment they are in our economic vitality and recovery from the challenges of the COVID pandemic. The weeks ahead are going to be full of difficult decisions for all of us. But for me, the decision to fight to protect the investments in CATs and COEs is an easy one, because I've seen the impact of their work for myself. And I know how critical it is that we grow our way out of this dark time with smart investments like this. With that, I will turn it over to the next speaker, but I'd like to offer anyone on this call or Zoom who wants to discuss this topic with me offline, please call my office at 516-746-5924, and I'd be happy to talk further with you about this. Additionally, if you're ready to go to bat for cats and cows this budget season, please connect with me so I know that I've got you in my corner. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of the presentation.
Thank you very, very much, Senator Kaplan. We look forward to working with you this year, and we're also looking forward to working with our next guest speaker this year. Assembly Member Harry Bronson is the new chair of the Assembly Committee on Economic Development, Job Creation, Commerce, and Industry. Well, this is a new role for Assembly Member Bronson. He is definitely no stranger to the higher education ecosystem for economic development. In his district are RIT and the University of Rochester, each of which is home to centers of excellence and centers of advanced technology. He's always been a supporter of the CATs and the COEs, and we look forward to working with him this year. So please join me in welcoming Assembly Member Harry Bronson.
Good morning, everyone. And Michael, thank you for that introduction. Senator Kaplan, you have a partner in advocating for Centers of Excellence and Centers for Advanced Technology. As Mike just mentioned, I've been fighting for them because the University of Rochester is in my district and Rochester Institute of Technology is in my district, and both participate in these innovative and wonderful programs. It's an honor to be here as the new chair of the Assembly's Committee on Economic Development, Job Creation, Commerce, and Industry. I'm very excited about that new role. Looking forward to working with many of the folks on this Zoom and my colleagues, both in the Assembly and the Senate, in advancing our economy and responding to COVID-19 and hopefully having recovery soon. I also am a liaison on the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council, as well as critical economic and social justice entities here in Rochester. One is Rock the Future, which is education-based, and the other is Rochester Monroe County Anti-Poverty Initiative. All are directly related to the economy, but also with a racial, social, and economic justice lens. And so I'm really excited to add to that, being chair of the Economic Development Council. You know, we have to recognize that we are facing three crises simultaneously. The first being the health crises of COVID-19, the second being the resulting downturn in the economy, and lastly, racial injustice. And all of those are interconnected, and we have to look at them as we try to advance policies that will be supportive of our families. And Centers of Advanced Technology and Centers of Excellence is a component of our economic recovery, and really using what we've been doing in the past and applying it to the crises that we're facing today. So we've got to continue to promote job creation and retention, as well as community rebuilding and expansion. All of this requires some difficult decisions and good economic times. With the pandemic and the fiscal crisis that the state's facing right now, these choices are even going to be harder. But in making choices, in making our commitment in investing in our future, it means we have to invest in our state's CATs and COEs in the budget. And I look forward to partnering with you again, Senator, and all the folks on this call. I look forward to hearing from the legislative updates that we're going to hear from the speakers today. And let's partner together and let's move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly Member Bronson. We're thrilled to have not just you and Senator Kaplan here, but there's so many other elected officials that have taken time out of their busy schedules to join us today. There's staff from the Senate and the Assembly, and we also have some directors and staff from the CATs and the COEs across the state joining us. I am going to proceed with a quick overview of the centers. I'll begin to share my screen and go into the presentation. After that, we have directors from 3 of the centers across the state, and they'll be giving us a little bit of an overview of a couple success stories that they have. So I think I got this up and running, and let's go ahead. So in the past, when we've talked the last couple of years about the CATs and the COEs, I'd love to open up with this quote, because this is who we are. It was almost serendipitous. A couple of years ago, we were meeting with the second floor on September 26th, the day after the governor made this quote. He was speaking to the Business Council, and it was when he was running for his 3rd term, and he had indicated that he wants the state to provide the synergy network for commercialization between academia and the private sector. It was a reporter from the New York Times that asked him what his goals for the 3rd term were, and this is what he said. And I saw the quote, and I was like, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is what the CATs and the COEs do. We're the bridge between campus and commercialization. We provide expertise, resources, and talent that industry needs to commercialize new technologies and create jobs. There are 15 centers for advanced technology, the CATs, across the state. I'm not going to go through and read all of these. The CATs actually started in the 1980s under Governor Mario Cuomo. And as you can see, it's a diverse and complementary range of topics and fields that they cover. I think that one of the topics for today's State of the State address is going to be green jobs, green energy. And you just look at the list of the centers here, and easily there's half a dozen of these that can be involved in one way or another on green energy or green jobs. And you pick just about any other sector as well, and you can see that there's going to be multiple centers that can help augment that industry. The centers of excellence, there are 14 of those. Again, here's the full list. I'm not going to go through each of those by name, but again, if we were to stick with the topic of green energy, green jobs, again, you can look here and you can see that there's easily, again, another half a dozen of the centers that can help industry and whether it's in that field or just about any other one. Couple of the differences though between the centers of excellence and the CATs. The CATs have a fixed contract with the state, and after the 5 years or so when that contract expires, there's an opportunity to renew, or you could see a CAT designation go to another university, and it could be in the same field or it could be a different topic. The centers of excellence were created by the legislature, and they're fixed in statute. So there's much more permanence to the COEs as opposed to the CATs, where there's a little bit more flexibility there. One of the other fundamental differences between the CATs and the COEs I'll touch on a little bit later too is that the Centers for Advanced Technology require a match from industry, whereas the Centers of Excellence have a match from the institution that hosts the center, so the university or the college. We like to think that the CATs and the COEs are probably one of the most efficient and effective economic investments that the state has made. So these are the state's numbers from the ESD annual reports, and you can see that in just nearly 3 years, you're looking at close to 10,000 jobs that were created and retained. Over $2.5 billion in economic impact. Depending on what year you look at, you're looking at a 25-to-1, upwards of 45-to-1 return on investment annually. And what's more is that these centers are located in every region of the state. So they help to build off the unique strengths of each region. They help to meet the needs of each region. And as I just touched on earlier, the funding that goes into these centers is essentially doubled because you're getting a one-to-one match either from the university or a corporate sponsor. So it's doubling the impact of the state's investment in R&D. The state budget. So last year, 2020 was full of surprises, and that's a gross understatement to say the least. We were not expecting this, but in the budget last year, the governor proposed eliminating all 14 centers of excellence and cutting funding down to less than 20 million for the CATs and the COEs. Under this plan, there would have been competition between the centers, and CATs would have had to compete against COEs. COEs would have had to compete against CATs for funding. And ultimately, though, we're real fortunate that the state legislature, thanks to the efforts of Senator Kaplan, Assemblymember Bronson, and some of you joining us here today, rejected the governor's proposal. We're able to push back on that and restore funding to 23.5 million. That's a partial cut, but given the state's fiscal challenges dealing with the pandemic, it's something that is certainly manageable and is certainly understanding of that. One of the things outside of economic development, though, that has been a big surprise to many in 2020 was the CAT and the COE response to COVID-19. Back in the fall, we started to catalog, and we came up with over 81 COVID-related projects that the CATs and the COEs have been involved in. These range from vaccines and therapies to testing, and a whole host of other projects related to the response for COVID-19. Of these projects, 23 or 28%, so more than a quarter of these involve centers of excellence. And that's important to note because those likely would have not gone forward if the governor's proposal had been adopted in the budget, because all 14 COEs would not have gotten any funding and would have been essentially dissolved. Now, that's sort of the high level overview of the CATs and the COEs, but we're joined here by three of my colleagues that work at other centers of excellence, and they're going to share some of their success stories and talk about some COVID-related projects, but also some very important and impactful economic development projects. And so with that, first up is going to be Norma from the University of Buffalo. I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it off to you, Norma.
Thank you, Mike. So the UB Center of Excellence in Bioinformatics and Life Sciences is one of the original 4 centers that were designated in 2001, with the state having had the vision to invest in the future and revitalization of Buffalo. The designation brought capital dollars, enabling the university to construct its first building on the downtown medical campus, which at the time had only 4,000 employees and a handful of companies. The university worked with its partners and leaders in the business community in collaboration with regional and state governments to make the campus what it is today: 120 acres containing state-of-the-art clinical, research, medical office space, including UB's Clinical and Translational Research Center, UB Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences, as well as the John R. Oshai Children's Hospital. It is now home to 150 companies, including 120 startups, with 16,000 people who work, study, or volunteer on the campus. The establishment of the Center of Excellence in Bioinformatics and Life Sciences in the heart of the city of Buffalo catalyzed the university's commitment and investment in the growth and transformation of the downtown medical campus. Over the past 3 years alone, the Center of Excellence has supported the growth of 55 life science companies, generating 458 new jobs and $163 million in non-job impacts. The Center of Excellence is home to 16 of these companies, including one Fortune 500 company. Let me share with you two examples of companies focused on developing innovative technologies addressing major challenges in healthcare. The first is oncology-focused Athenex, formerly known as Kinex, founded in 2003 by UB faculty member Dr. David Hangauer. Success continues for this global biopharmaceutical company in its mission dedicated to the discovery, development, and commercialization of novel therapies for the treatment of cancer. Athenex, in addition to its chemotherapy portfolio, has expanded into immuno and cell-based therapies, which leverage the power of a patient's immune system to fight cancer. These promising therapies are truly transforming cancer patients' lives. Athenex was the first anchor tenant in the Center of Excellence, leveraging the center's industrial-scale chemistry facilities for oncology drug development, the clean room for drug packaging for its early clinical trials, as well as office space. Athenex also took advantage of our Center for Advanced Technology program. We funded 9 R&D projects from 2012 to 2016. These projects included the development of a drug which it recently received approval for by the FDA. This is Athenex's first new drug application approval and the first for Buffalo. Despite having moved to its current corporate headquarters 2 blocks away, it still maintains its presence at the Center of Excellence and will be expanding its R&D footprint at the COE for its immuno and cell-based therapies. In July of 2017, Athenex underwent an IPO and now employs 581 employees worldwide, with 172 in Western New York, including 30 UB grads. The company reached a market capitalization that exceeded $1 billion, raised an additional $100 million in 2019 from 3 of the top large healthcare investment entities, and raised $275 million from investors in late 2020 to back the commercial launch of their new drug. Within the last year, they have filed 2 INDs and 2 NDAs with the FDA. The success of Athenex, however, will be felt beyond the Buffalo-Niagara region in New York State, extending to the southern tier, where their new $210 million pharmaceutical manufacturing facility in Dunkirk will be opening later this year. Dunkirk has suffered from industry loss over the past few years. The recruitment of 450 employees to the new Athenex facility this year will bring a boost to the southern tier region. This is what success looks like. Life science companies like Athenex path to success, almost 2 decades in the making, requires being able to play the long game. The COE and the CAT provided resources and facilities, faculty experts, business development executives, student talent, entrepreneurial programming, and funding, helping to make the long game possible. My next example is Garwood Medical, founded in 2014. Garwood Medical is an advanced med tech startup whose mission is focused on improving clinical outcomes for infection and wound healing. Garwood Medical leverages electrical stimulation to eliminate biofilm infections that occur during joint replacements. Electroceuticals are now recognized as an up-and-coming form of therapy. Recently, Garwood was granted FDA Breakthrough Devices designation for their BioPrax device. Wayne Bacon, president and CEO of Garwood Medical, recently stated, "Few people other than physicians, impacted patients, and industry folks understand the tremendous suffering and immense cost caused by periprosthetic joint infections. As we complete development and testing of BioPrax, the FDA Breakthrough Devices designation gives us an incredible boost from many perspectives." Garwood Medical is also co-located at the Center of Excellence, utilizing its BSL-2 level laboratory space as well as shared equipment within the center. The wet lab in the Center of Excellence enables Garwood scientists to run in vitro experiments with live clinical strength bacteria. As stated by Wayne Bacon, the savings in time and money, because we have the COE lab, is immense. We have the advantage of using the COE's state-of-the-art equipment on a shared basis, supplementing our own and saving us huge sums. Garwood's technology has a wide range of applications, including joint replacements, dental implants, and osseointegrative limb replacements through prophylactic post-surgical treatments. Garwood Medical has leveraged the UBCAT through funding for 4 projects to advance their technology. They recently received a $750,000 grant from the Department of Defense to collaborate with the Walter Reed Army Hospital and UB for evaluating in large animals how the therapy behind the BioPrax system can be used to enhance wound healing and prevent infection in osseointegrative limb replacements. This technology will improve the lives of amputees, including disabled veterans, as well as individuals who have lost a limb due to cancer. The company raised $7.3 million last year and recently closed another round of $4 million. In addition to the space it occupies at the Center of Excellence, the company recently relocated its headquarters to an economically disadvantaged region of Buffalo, where it intends to train and recruit individuals from the area. It has also spun out 2 additional companies to further develop UV technologies, Garwood Semiconductors and Garwood Laboratories. As I hope I have shown you, the path to success for Athenex and Garwood has been made possible through the investments made by New York State in the COE and CAT. Buffalo is a city that had lost its manufacturing base and had seen its population greatly diminish. Over the past 20 years, it has been reinventing and transforming itself through building an innovation economy. Much like the 20-year startup community story told by Brad Feld about Boulder, Colorado, Buffalo is a city on the rise, and life science companies supported by the COE and CAT are a big part of that story. We are very grateful for the investments made by New York State to drive its innovation bioeconomy, which address improving the health of our citizens and the health of our economy. So now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Ben Chang from RPI.
Thank you, Norma. Hi, I'm Ben Chang. I'm the director of the Center of Excellence for Digital Game Development at RPI. This Center of Excellence is one of the newest COEs. It's actually a consortium center between RPI, RIT, and NYU. I wanted to start with a little bit of background about the games industry. So the video game industry in 2019 was worth over $139 billion. That's greater than the NFL, the NBA, the Major League Baseball, and the NHL combined. In 2020, the games industry worldwide brought in over $180 billion in revenue. This is an industry that saw, for many obvious reasons, tremendous growth during this year of the pandemic. But much of that was just building on trends that have been going on for quite some time. A couple of highlights from this year: Travis Scott's Astroworld concert in the video game Fortnite had over 12 million viewers, which is nearly double the audience of the MTA Video Music Awards. Games have become a cultural force, a kind of a social space with incredible impact across multiple generations. The games industry is about entertainment, and it's also about cutting edge technology. It's been likened to a kind of combination, a cross between Hollywood and Silicon Valley. Games are huge immersive worlds, they're social experiences, and they're also a way for telling unique personal stories. So here in New York, we're home to companies who lead in all these different areas of games: AAA, blockbuster, big budget games, independent indie studio games, mobile games, serious games, educational games, simulation and training games. A couple of highlights that came out from New York State this year include the Tony Hawk game developed by Vicarious Visions, which is on many Game of the Year lists, has won a number of awards. And Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, developed by Vaillant Studios, also here in the capital region, which reinvigorated the popular Mario Kart franchise in a totally innovative augmented reality way that lets people play using your actual physical space of your home as the game. So the Centers of Excellence in Digital Game Development were created to capitalize on this, to help make New York State a global hub for the games industry. All 3 of the centers work with the games industry as an ecosystem. We work with companies throughout the state, with nonprofit organizations, with STEM and STEAM educators, makerspaces, economic development agents, organizations to advance the games community here in the state. The Center of Excellence funding has allowed all the centers to run incubator programs, providing promising new game developers and early stage companies with space, guidance, and resources to maximize opportunities for commercial success. We're anchored in our regions, but we serve companies throughout the state. Alumni of these programs are staying, they're founding studios, they're publishing games, they're winning awards, and they're creating jobs. We also support programs specifically geared to expanding the ranges of voices in the games industry, creating opportunities for communities who have been underrepresented in digital games. A couple of highlights I'd like to share from the different centers. From the NYU Game Center this year, a group of MFA graduate alumni released a game called We Should Talk on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox, the Switch, as well as on PC. This was a nominee for the prestigious Indiecade Festival and featured in the Indiecade Summer Series. And one of the alumni of the NYU incubator, Cosmo D, released Tales from Off-Peak City Volume 1 in the spring, which was nominated as a finalist for the Independent Games Festival Nuovo Award, and has a 99% positive rating on Steam, which, if you know much about games on Steam, is pretty hard to achieve. Here at RPI, we ran a competition for small businesses creating games and gamification technology responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. The results included an app to help people manage the stress of the pandemic with mindfulness and self-care, and an app using gamification to enhance home medical device use to improve pulmonary function. At the RIT Magic Center, their community incubator program assists indie developers in the Rochester area, and both members of their inaugural program have published their games. Temgam, which is published in December, was the inaugural launch for the Nintendo Switch platform, and A Shot in the Dark was just released on Steam and itch.io. And they run a speaker series called Made in New York State, which highlights all the games that are made here. The key takeaway here is that as we work to renew and rebuild the New York State economy, the digital game sector holds strong opportunity for growth. Best-selling hit games are being made here in New York, here in the capital region, and elsewhere, and are being released even during the pandemic. All the signs point to a sustained shift in the entertainment industry towards growth in games and crossovers between gaming technology and other entertainment media. The Centers of Excellence are a core mechanism to innovate and capitalize on this global industry here in New York. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand this off to Pete from Syracuse.
Thank you much. I appreciate it. I know Matt told us not to introduce ourselves, but I'm a fairly new New Yorker. I moved here about 2 years ago, and I'm already a very proud New Yorker. So I want to thank especially our lawmakers, our elected officials, and I think during this time, our first responders, our grocery workers, our frontline workers, our healthcare professionals, for the incredible job they have been doing for years. So if you could pass that on as you're out in the communities, I would appreciate that. We're all truly thankful for that. As you may know, Syracuse houses actually two centers. Our Center of Excellence, which focuses on environmental and energy systems, such as innovative filtering and HVAC systems, which we all know was and is crucial, as especially during the last year, we all worked to improve airflow, circulation, and cleanliness in workspace. Our CASE Center of Advanced Technology, on the other hand, focuses on cluster development in big data, data fusion, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, unmanned air systems, or AKA drones, among others. But I can tell you COVID was not on the CASE CAT's agenda probably last year. So as many of us did last March when we went home to work remotely, it really only took, I don't know, less than 24 hours that we figured out we can do this with minimal disruption. It's still not perfect, but we can accomplish that. And soon thereafter, I want to say, and this really speaks to this whole network that we all represent, I want to say within a week or two, I think we had our first conference call, and we all asked, so what do we do during this new, quote unquote, new normal? And it was really during one of those phone calls, and we continue to have those phone calls, that we learned that over 80 projects, 81 projects to be precise, are in the works among those centers, whether they are experts in those fields or not. So I want to briefly touch on one of the projects that Syracuse University worked on. And it was a wastewater surveillance platform that we developed. And, I think because CASE is really not an expert in that, I want to say it was, it came about organically, I think, as we've seen throughout all other universities and centers. where people just decided, okay, this is now urgent and important. We need to do something. And our Vice President of Research, Dr. Ramesh Raina, and our Center Director here, Dr. Pramod Varshney, is also a co-PI on this project, came up with the idea of testing sewer water for viral load. And it's actually very simple. And I have to, a short disclaimer, I'm on the business side of economic development, so I'm sure I cannot explain it as precisely as a scientist would do, but I think, we're an audience where we want to, quickly explain what we're doing and why it is important. But this wastewater surveillance project is basically measuring the viral load in our sewage system. We began testing in March of 2020. So basically by the time, all of us pretty much went home, that project was already implemented. We created a private-public partnership between the Syracuse University, SUNY ESF, SUNY Upstate Onondaga County, and Arcadis of North America. That is a engineering consulting firm with over 750 employees in the state of New York, I believe 7 offices with headquarters in Syracuse, and another partner, Quadrant Biosciences, for testing purposes. A quick outcome and success, I think in early September of 2020, the early warning system actually issued and triggered an alert, which we were able, because of our testing, to identify precisely the building where that came from. We took action immediately and cleared out the building, and the situation was resolved in less than 24 to 48 hours. The building was reopened and no cluster emerged from that. We also implemented a new testing method in April, which was much less expensive. I'm not gonna get into technical details, but one of the biggest benefits, it took the testing period from 24 hours down to 6 hours, as we all now by now, since we're all hobby epidemiologists, that is critical today. By June of 2020, we were operating across 6 counties in New York State, analyzing about 300 wastewater samples each week. And we can, depending on some of the things we've seen during or after, after Halloween, Thanksgiving, and the Christmas holidays, we can ramp that up to 1,200 samples if we needed to. The other critical part of wastewater samples, it really gives our communities about a 3 to 5 day early warning. So if the viral load is extremely high in the wastewater, then we know there's a good chance that people either just came back from vacation or travel, or maybe there's something else going on. But the good part is we can give our elected officials, our counties, our healthcare professionals a heads up and saying in 3 to 5 days, your hospital will be full. We did all that in addition to all of the other drone work in our drone corridor with New Air, with Thales, with Aerion, with so many private sector companies that are either in our incubator or we have graduated from our incubator. But I do want to get into a couple of real economic development stuff. And those are, as I would call them, early post-COVID realities. And I think it speaks to, again, the importance of the innovation industry that Norma so eloquently described earlier when that was started 15, maybe 20 years ago. As you all know, 68% on the US economy is based on consumer spending. So retail, restaurants, tourism, dozens of other businesses and industries fall into that. The early indication right now is that most of them will recover with the exception of retail. And I think we all know why that is. Online purchasing. Another factor is, and this also goes back to a point that Norma made earlier, and in my experience is mostly around the Great Lakes and economic development in various states. Manufacturing, whether we like it or not, the truth is that manufacturing has decreased from 1970, where 25% of Americans worked in manufacturing, to now 9%. And this is, in all honesty, mostly caused by automation, offshoring, mergers and acquisitions. We are also very concerned in the economic development world that there will be even more automation, or as we refer to it as post-COVID automation, with even more consolidation and mergers, resulting in little or no job creation. Now, we could look towards another economic development tool, foreign direct investment, where we talk to foreign companies and tell them New York is the best place for you to start a company. But unfortunately, indications are over the last year, and we saw a downturn prior to that, foreign direct investment is down 40%, which translates into about $1 trillion less investment made by foreign companies into the United States. Supply chain. We all know the worldwide supply chain was challenged this last year and interrupted. Economic developers are expecting that trend will continue, where companies will look for either new suppliers, which could affect some of our existing suppliers in New York, or even worse, they could source internationally. There is a human impact in remote work. Prior to COVID, in a survey of about 120 companies, mostly in office settings, 39% of workers work remotely already. The survey now shows they believe in the future it will be 55 to 60%. And the reason why that is important is because of the last challenge we're all going to face all over again, like we did 20 years ago, is a slowing and potentially reversing of urban migration. And that is of huge concern. Cities worked so hard, they put up incubators, they put up all kinds of programs, restaurants, and we all grew again. But all of that is at risk again. So let me just say in closing, I believe from what you heard from all presenters and the knowledge you have about the CAT and COE program is that we will continue to be at the forefront of not only restarting, but I think it's more important that we say we're also accelerating our recovery. The strength of this program is not only each center's expertise, but really the network that they're part of. I think we all know that from Silicon Valley. And on top of that, we're really also cluster development organizations as well. Furthermore, I think this network is well established and intertwined with other economic development programs and assets around the state. Just to give you an example, and I'm going to stick with Syracuse till I'm still fairly new to New York, but you might know Center State's Tech Garden, which is a 30 or 40,000 square foot incubator in downtown Syracuse that hosts Genius New York companies. So now we have two programs, the Tech Garden and the very successful Genius New York program that we actually from our K Center equip with talent. And so if funding is reduced, we can produce less talent. And these Genius New York companies or other startups that they host more than just Genius New York companies, they may not stay, or they will likely not stay in our local cities anymore. Our local and regional employers are also in need of top talent and frequently work with us for student placement. I really believe that reducing support for one program will have devastating economic impacts on other assets and industry throughout our region and state, and will potentially set us back, our communities back to where we were 15 years ago. Let me just close with saying that economic developers for decades have advocated for flexible and adaptable economic development programs or incentives. And if last year was any indication, I believe we demonstrated how flexible, how nimble, and collaborative we are between all CATs and COEs, and how successful we can be even during the most difficult of times. So I'm really glad and excited that New York has such a program. These types of programs are rare. I understand they cost money, but the return on investment is second to none compared to any other incentive. We are executing the next generation of workforce programs, innovation, and ingenuity, and we must continue to do so. So I want to thank you for your time, and we all look forward towards your continued support. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to open it up for questions now. So please, if you're on mute, make sure you unmute. You can ask questions either on video or you can use the chat function. I think everybody is still online, so we would be happy to address any questions you might have. Make sure you unmute.
Okay. Well, I will be sending out copy of the presentation, and I think we got some supporting materials from the presenters as well. So anyone that's registered, I'll be sure to send that out later today, I believe. And certainly, if there's any other questions or follow up, you can certainly reply to that, and be happy to try to answer those for you. We thank everybody for their time today. I know it's a busy day in Albany, as it almost always is this time of year. So we're really thankful that so many of you joined us today, and we look forward to working with you throughout the session to try to continue to support the Centers of Excellence and Centers of Advanced Technology. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Stay
Presentation.
safe.
I have one quick question before we go.
Oh, yeah.
Assemblymember Stephanie Zinnerman from the 56th District, representing Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights in Brooklyn. How are you all? Excellent presentation today. Thank you very much for all of the information. I am very much interested in having a virtual conference, and that we could invite the educators and schools in our district to participate in, and of course students, and have you all discuss what the centers do. And so who would I need to my team reach out to arrange for that? Because this was
I'm happy to try to help with that, and I know that I could coordinate, whether it's with any of the 29 centers. If we want to focus on the ones at NYU or CUNY, happy to make those contacts as well. But certainly, yep.
And are they
wonderful?
Are they at all the CUNY sites or just some? And if there's just some, if you could give me the list of those CUNY campuses that have centers, as well as the SUNYs, because I think the only one that I made note of that's close in my district is Polytech.
Okay. I will double check on CUNY. CUNY is a brand new center that was just designated within the last year. So I don't know about that off the top of my head, but I'll definitely facilitate those contacts for you. Happy to work with you, and appreciate that very much.
All righty, thank you.
Buffalo would love to be part of that. So we have someone completely devoted to education at the K through 12 and undergraduate levels, and we do a lot of work in that area.
Okay, great, wonderful. And I had to take a call, so I missed part of the presentation on the monitoring of the sewer systems. Is that something that's going to be sent via email as well?
I believe so, and if not, I can email that to you. Absolutely.
All righty, thank you very much.
Or I will email it to Mike. He will probably collect everything and then forward it to you. Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Thank you all again.
My pleasure.
And Peter, we had a quick question in the chat for you about repeating which industries wouldn't recover that you were discussing.
I don't have all the industries, but they're really in consumer spending. So it's retail, tourism, restaurants. I mean, now, if we're talking about more specifically, it's barbershops, it's gyms, and those, many of those will take a hit and will likely close permanently. Early indications are about a reduction of 2% of those nationally, and 2% of restaurants closings or retail closing. I'm sorry, not restaurants, retail. Is significant if 68% of our economy is consumer-based spending.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Well, thank you very much. We're in the normal cycle of things. We're in the normal lobbying season in Albany. It seems that much is dependent right now. We're sort of in limbo, depending on actions by the federal government. Are we waiting? I assume we're waiting for that. And if so, will the budgetary schedule in the state be normal this year in terms of the schedule? Anybody know?
Yeah.
I can try to answer that, Mike.
Yeah, sure.
you know, we've discussed that in our majority conference in the assembly. And, you know, certainly we're on the same timetable that historically that's driven by the Constitution. So we need to have a budget passed by April 1st. So we will continue to do that. The only adjustment might be if the federal government is sending us signals of, you know, their timing, because certainly we're facing a $15 billion shortfall this fiscal year coming up. And, you know, we can't close that on our own. We can't cut spending enough. We can't raise taxes enough to do that on our own. We have to rely on the federal government for a stimulus package that goes directly to the state and frankly, directly to localities. So the only way the timing is going to be different is if it's driven by the federal government in some way, but I don't expect that to be the case. I expect the Biden administration will do something relatively quickly in the new year. We're hopeful that happens, and we're hopeful that it includes direct aid to states and to localities. And if that happens, then we can figure out what else we have to do as a state. And there is going to have to be other things. And I'll just throw out in the media as well. But expanding online gaming is going to be a part of the equation. Likely it's going to be part of the discussion for sure, as well as the legalization of adult recreational marijuana.
Thanks for the insight.
You're welcome.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So thank you guys again. We appreciate everyone taking the time to participate on a busy day, and certainly look forward to working with all of you, legislators, staff, and all the other CATs and COEs again this year to advocate for the centers. So thank you very much for your time, your support, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much, everybody.